Good evening. This is Glenn Tobey, bringing to you the Spring Forest Qigong's Heart Wisdom Talks. Every month, there's a talk. So today is January 26, 2023. And we have a special guest today, Richard Babboni, who really is a certified trainer, but just really an all-around, thoughtful and considerate. And I don't want to quite get too phony and say, like, he takes my breath away whenever he talks about things, but a little bit. So I'm going to kind of talk about even those phrases. What does that mean, like to have your breath taken away? What causes that breath to go away? And then the other quick little funny thing is, I live in northern Minnesota. So right now it's about 10 below zero. So I can really see my breath, when I talk and when I walk and when I breathe. Where Richard lives in California, where the temperature is 50s, 60s. So he's not seeing his breath. So here we're kind of in a common way. How can we, find what takes away our breath? What's it doing to us? And then maybe this image of really seeing our breath more, not just so much in cold weather, but is there a way to focus so well that we understand the dynamics of breathing, of breath, so that we can actually see it maybe in a conscious way? I think that's the part of the topic title that Richard has chosen, the healing power of conscious breathing. So I'd like to call on Richard, if he would mind saying a little few things about himself, and then maybe even how come he chose this topic of the power of conscious breathing. So Richard?
Thank you, Master Glenn Tobey, and welcome to our global Spring Forest Qigong audience. Such a pleasure to be back with you here on the Heart Wisdom Talk series. I am a business leader. I have 25 years experience in senior management positions, both in companies in the United States and in Italy. And I am a father and a husband and a Qigong practitioner, as well as a Qigong student and a Qigong teacher. And for 2023, I'm going to be investing a lot more of my time in studying and practicing and teaching Qigong. And I'm really looking forward to that. So how is your question about?
Yeah. Yes,
okay.
Please.
Our time delay between Duluth and Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So I chose the healing power of conscious breathing because breathing is one of the 4 pillars of the Spring Forest Qigong practice. And so I've been teaching the level 1 Qi activation course, and I really understand the impact that the breathing has on my active exercise practice and on my meditation practice. And in fact, as I'm doing more research and more studying, this January came across a summit on the Shift Network where they had a breath summit, and over 5 days, they had 9 people each day. So 45 different experts from around the world talking about their various flavors of breathing techniques. And the most important thing is the consciousness you bring to the breathing and the awareness. And it really goes hand in hand with Spring Forest Qigong. It's no surprise it's one of the 4 pillars, because both the Qigong practice and the Qigong breathing practice can help you heal faster and more completely. So that's why I chose the topic.
Yeah, so breathing is something that, we do just kind of normally every day. It goes on and on and on. So what does becoming more conscious of our breathing, do for our bodies or for our hearts or from our minds?
Yes, and that's really the point, isn't it? That we all breathe, but how many of us are putting any awareness on our breathing outside possibly of meditation practices or our Qigong practices, right? But the goal would be to have awareness of how you're breathing throughout the day. And many people don't think about the breath because it takes care of itself. But breath is so important. You think, how long can you go without food? Well, you can go maybe a few weeks without food. How long can you go without water? Well, for a few days you can go without water. But how long can you not breathe? Well, if you're really, really good, maybe you can go for 2 or 3 minutes, right? So breath begins our life. Breath carries you through all your days, and actually your life and breath end together, doesn't it? So I was really inspired also by a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, my favorite Buddhist Zen master, who said, "Feelings come and go like clouds in a windy sky, but conscious breathing is my anchor." So conscious breathing is controlled breathing. It's breathing with intention. It's breathing with a purpose. And again, ties into our Spring Forest practice. Master Lin always says, when you begin your practice or you begin your meditation, what is your purpose? Why are you doing the exercises or the meditation or the breathing? Is it for better sleep? Is it for reducing stress? Is it for chronic illness or strengthening your immune system? What is your purpose? And breath work includes techniques that work on all these things. It's especially effective for calming down the body and energizing the body, and eventually even facilitating out-of-body experiences for people who are looking for that as well.
Yeah, it is true that our breath is a daily thing, but how come it can be actually so special and so powerful when we call to mind its use and it's, in one sense, its technique in order to capitalize on the strength and power of breath. I know in the work that I also do as a psychotherapist, I know that anger and anxiety wants you to breathe faster. And so some way, impacting anger and anxiety by learning breathing techniques that slow down the breath. So almost as if you're robbing anger and anxiety of energy that it's stealing from breathing. So having techniques that can slow your breath down can also take away the power of anger and the power of anxiety. Just think about when you've been angry or anxious. The breath is fast, kind of out of control. So maybe, Richard, if you wouldn't mind addressing that a little bit better and more accurately than what I have spoken.
Well, that's tough to do, but I'll give it a shot. So, when we're angry, when we're stressed, we activate the sympathetic nervous system. We're in that fight, flight, or freeze mode. And that's when we are reactive and not proactive. We're not in control, and our emotions are in control. And we know that studies show that 80% of the visits to the doctor's office are for stress-related diseases or problems. Right? So just think about if you can control stress with the simplicity of the breath. Another famous Qigong master, Dr. Yankee, says that the human body produces the most profound medicine for free with no side effects, and it's available to you at any time in any place. And that's using your breath with the awareness of the breath. So simply put, the act of observing the breath is going to change how your body reacts. Very often you hear people saying, take 3 deep breaths. My wife was just sharing with me in school today. They were talking to the kids, take 3 deep breaths. Just that awareness of your breath is automatically going to cause a shift, not only in your consciousness, but in your reactions. And it's going to calm you down. It's going to help you get back into the parasympathetic mode. And it's going to, which is your rest and digest and relax and calming mode. And these techniques are very, very effective in doing this very quickly.
And so the idea of acknowledging the power of the breath, increases the consciousness of it. So if I can acknowledge that the breath has lots of power, then I'm needing to have that closer to my daily life, able to use it at any moment, at any time, not just when I put on my Qigong robe and get my meditation cushion out, that this breath can be used at all times and all moments to increase the health and the well-being of your whole body and your spirit.
Yeah, exactly. And it's useful in so many instances in our ordinary life. Before you give a presentation at work, or if you're a public speaker, or if you're an athlete, before you go and take the stage at the start of your race. It helps with everything from sleeping to chronic issues, nervousness, headaches, ulcers, high blood pressure. It is a very, very powerful medicine, literally, that we have access to. Some people describe it as our own internal pharmacy. We know that also of Qigong, but also of the breathing.
So, Richard, without putting you on a spot, and just so everyone knows, we have not rehearsed these things or stuff like that. So, could you describe a couple of methods of breathing, techniques of breathing, either Master Lin's or things that you have?
Yeah, actually, I thought a good way to start, actually, to get into right space might be to practice something called the HeartMath Quick Coherence Technique. Really easy. We can do 1 or 2 minutes. It's a simple but powerful technique that will allow you to connect more deeply to your own heart and to others' hearts as well. So we know from Master Lin's teachings that connecting to our heart, connecting to that universal unconditional love is the most powerful healing power in the universe. So let's try a quick practice. This is the way it works. You are directing the attention to your heart area and breathing a little more deeply than you normally would. So why don't you just get in a comfortable sitting position, or if you're home and you're lying down, just lying down. Close your eyes just for a minute. Focus on your breath. And as you breathe in, you imagine that you're breathing into your heart area. And as you breathe out, you're imagining you're breathing out from your heart area. So now, while you're focusing your attention on your breath and on your heart, breathing in a little more deeper than usual, try to inhale for about 5 seconds, or count to 5. And then exhale for a count to 5. And if you'd like, you can even rest your hand on your heart while you're doing this, focusing your attention there, breathing slowly in and breathing slowly out. Now, as you're doing this, try to recall a memory of someone you love, someone you care for, something you appreciate. It could be a friend, a family member, a pet, some time you spend in nature. Just focus on that feeling that makes you feel good, that makes you feel joyful, that makes you feel calm, and makes you feel at ease. Focusing on your heart as you breathe in and breathe out. So this is the quick coherence technique, and as the name suggests, the technique puts your heart rhythms in coherent mode, and you feel more connected, more centered, and you can do this anytime, any place, and very quickly.
Beautiful. So the dynamics of the physical structure of our body, in the lungs, is, when we're inhaling, the lungs can move in only a few different directions. It's confined by the rib cage, so it can move upward, but it's confined. It can move outward, but it's confined. But the breath is not confined when it goes downward. So the idea of inhaling, upward, it can go so far. That's the yang movement. And then the exhale, or the release of that, is it sinks down. So the breath then goes down further into our being. And we can perhaps talk about that in some other ways as well. But just understand that the physical structure of our body really is designed to move that breath, downward, because of the confining of the lungs, of the ribs, and the structure of our body. So if we can take advantage of the way the body is constructed. Sir?
Absolutely. It's so true. And it's so consistent again with our Spring Forest practice of focusing on the lower dantian, focusing on that energy reservoir 3 inches behind our navel. In the Qigong practice, we are sinking down that energy, sinking to our center of gravity, to that center of energy that we call upon later throughout the course of the day. So the interesting thing studying and researching for this talk is that there are so many different types of breath practices out there. And to your point, how many different ways can you breathe? Well, there's variations on whether you breathe through the nose or through the mouth or some combination of both, or alternate nostrils, whether you breathe fast, whether you breathe slow, whether you're breathing to energize, whether you're breathing to calm. It's amazing how many different variations there are out there. But there are really 4 stages of the breath, as we know. You have the inhalation, you have the turning of the breath between the inhalation and the exhalation, you have the exhalation, and then you have the pause, that natural pause that occurs between the second turning of the breath, between the exhalation and the next inhalation. And interesting enough, during the moments of transition, that's when we really have an opportunity to get into that emptiness, to get into that mindfulness space, that space where we can make real changes in our behavior and see significant benefits and significant differences. The yogis, the Indian yogis, believed that the turning of the breath was a way to get into deep inner stillness. And in fact, even a modern teacher, Wayne Dyer, called the moment of holding breath getting into the gap. So again, very consistent with the concepts we learn in Spring Forest Qigong about going into the emptiness, going into that quiet space, that space between being and non-being, right? And then as we go a little bit deeper into the types of breath, besides the 4 stages of breath, there are different qualities of the breath. And I like learning about this a lot as well. Ken Cohen, another Qigong master, talks about 6 qualities, but in particular, the first 3 are very important. Long, slow, and deep. Long breath means you have a long, steady breath. Slow means you have a slow respiratory rate. You're not hurried at all. And deep, to Glenn's point, means you're sinking low into the body, deep into the lower dantian, filling that energy center. And then, even though there are all these types of breaths out there, from Qigong breathing to circular breathing to mindfulness breathing, pranayama breathing, rebirthing, transformational breathing, Wim Hof breathing, it's never ending, right? But I found that there's another Qigong master, Dr. Yankee, says there are 4 archetypical types of breath. So there's a 2-part breath where you're simply breathing in and out unconsciously to breathing in and out consciously. So normally we are breathing about 16 or 20 breaths per minute. When you put your awareness on it and you're breathing consciously, your goal is to drop that down to 5 or 6 breaths a minute. And when you do, you can lower your blood pressure. You can again trigger the autonomic nervous systems that activate receptors, activate neurotransmitters, activate chemical reactions with endorphins and oxytocin and all these positive good things that let the body know that it's safe and brings it to this healthy state of being. So that's a 2-part breath. It's simply breathing in and breathing out slower with attention. The 3-part breath, focusing on breathing into the belly and then raising the breath up to the chest before you then exhale naturally. So this is without a hold. It still continues breathing, but with different awareness into the belly, into the chest, and then all the way out. So this requires engaging the brain. And so it's also working on brain plasticity, which is another great thing. The 4-part breath then introduces a hold after the inhalation. So breathing into the belly, breathing into the chest, holding the breath, and then exhaling all the way out. And the variations on how many seconds you do in and out and hold, there's a lot of different variations on that. But they find that the simple variations are also very, very effective. One of the benefits is when you hold the breath, you go into what's called hormesis. And hormesis is when you put the body slightly under stress. You can also have good benefits when you do that by doing intermittent fasting or doing alternating cold showers. This activates lots of different mechanisms within the body that enhance your ability to be more resilient. And it's a very, very beneficial practice. Holding the breath also starves some oxygen, so it increases a little bit the CO2. And on a short-term basis, that also triggers resiliency and is very, very beneficial. And then finally, the 5-part breath. So the 5-part breath is breathing into the stomach, into the belly, in the chest. You have the hold, part 3. You have the exhalation, part 4. And then you have the hold after the exhalation, part 5. This is a little more uncomfortable for a lot of people, but it also has very profound effects. Nose breathing in particular, as opposed to mouth breathing, generates nitric oxide, which is really good for the blood system, dilates the alveoli and the lungs, and causes you to take in more air, breathing deeper, working miracles for the arteries, the veins, the capillaries. So all of these other variations are really variations on these 4 main themes.
That's just beautiful. I love the details of these things. One thing I've wrestled with over the years as well is that word hold. So to have a caution with that, sometimes when you're going to hold, it becomes too tight, where you're focused on holding the breath. And another word that might be a little bit more, if that's not Richard's comments, you hear about holding your breath in lots of other places. You might be thinking about pausing. I'm going to inhale and then pause in the inhale. And then I'm going to exhale. So it is in that 3-part, inhaling, pausing, which is holding, but the mind isn't so focused on the action of the hold. It's just focused on the pause, acknowledging, being aware that I'm not inhaling. It's like Shen. I'm not inhaling and I'm not exhaling. I am just pausing. I am in between the inhaling and the exhaling. And then when the exhale comes, it's able to release itself further down. And the other thought, from what you're saying, Richard, is then when you say going down, what is the sinking down? If it's not going to spread out, so to speak, it does sink down into the lungs that are perfect for, that carries the richness of the blood. So it needs that oxygen. But then as the breath exhales further, deeper and deeper, it really begins to sink down. So if I could, the balance of yin and yang, so just to toss that in, and I'm going to go back to a couple other questions with Richard, so that, or since we're alive, our body is yang. And so then when we inhale with the breath, it moves the yang, it moves upward in our bodies. So then it's working on the brain, it's, the physical form. But then in the exhale, it's working on the yin. It's moving things from the brain, from the upper part of the torso, into a more of a rest. Not so much a pausing rest, but the longer you just sit still in the exhale, then it sinks deeper into your body. Kind of, you've heard the word about rooting or grounding. How do I ground myself? I need to ground myself. So a lot of times that exhale, you're letting it sink into your middle, sink into your hips, sink down the body to your feet, kind of into the earth. So as much as you can sink down, you're moving a lot more into that yin energy and taking away some of the dangers of that excessive energy, the excessive working out, the yang energy. So the benefit to the body for taking longer periods of time to let the exhale sink down, sink down, sink down without forcing it. Does that make sense, Richard?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, both points. I really like the first one, that reframing from holding to pausing, because words matter. And it is supposed to be a gentle, easy, calming, relaxing process. If you're thinking hold and you're stressing, that's not where you want to be, right?
That's
So
not what you're saying.
I like
Yeah.
I like that very much. And then the sinking down, it's interesting. I heard someone say once that if you hold the breath before you inhale, you're hesitant to take that inhalation. It's almost as if you're afraid of life. So the yang, like you're saying, the physical form, the life on the inhalation. And the exhalation, if you're not letting go of the breath completely, it's almost as if you're afraid of death, right? So
Yeah.
I've also heard that when you take that final breath, you're supposed to be letting go and surrendering and not holding on to it, right? So it's true that the grounding is a big aspect of it, and you really get that benefit. And surprisingly enough, a lot of people might think, because it seems logical, that when you breathe in through your chest, you're expanding your chest, you're actually breathing in more air. But it's not true. When you breathe in through your belly and your diaphragm is pressing down, that belly expands and you're really opening up the lungs. You're able to breathe with the lower part of the lungs that really have the alveoli that do the absorption, and you're actually able to move more air. We're not talking about the pace of the air, we're talking about the volume of the air. And to your earlier point, we're very aware of the belly expanding, but at the same time, the lower ribs are expanding. You're also expanding in your lower back. If you put a hand on your front and your back when you're doing that belly breathing, you see that your back is expanding as well. It's so cool. There's so much to it. And yeah, the lower dantian, energizing the lower dantian, which we do in the practice also with the reversed abdominal belly breathing, which is something else to talk about, is just very, very powerful.
I love your reminder of that phrase. When we die, when someone dies, they release their last breath. They're no longer holding on to the breath. It's an exhalation, moving downward into, wherever they go, so to speak. So it's a beautiful everyday phrase of dying, where the breath is really kind of a remarkable picture of what's going on.
Yeah. One of the other things I want to take a quick moment, Glenn, if I can, is to talk about the why nose breathing. Because the nose breathing, a lot of people think that you can get more air breathing in through your mouth. The volume of air is true, but it's not just about the volume, it's about the quality of the air. And I shared this with my Sunday practice group about James Ness has got a video on YouTube about why nose makes a difference. The nose is an amazing organ. It's filtering the air from pollutants and from allergens and from bacteria. It's heating the air. It's pressurizing the air. It moisturizes the air. So all this conditioned air going into your lungs is a totally different experience for your body than just straight mouth breathing. And it actually allows us to extract 20% more oxygen than breathing through your mouth. So, when you're out there running, you're jogging, you're breathing in your mouth, you're actually less efficient than you would be if you were nose breathing. So I think that's really cool to learn the difference. And of course, everything has an application there. I'm not saying you never want to mouth breathe. That wouldn't be true. There's a lot of benefit in alternating as well. Again, all depends on your purpose. But in general, we should be breathing most of the time through our nose. He points out that of 5,000 plus animals on the earth, none of them are breathing in and out of their mouth. Just maybe dogs panting when they're trying to deal with the heat transfer. But otherwise, it's nose breathing because it's the most efficient way to breathe.
If you take that example, even right now, practice inhale through your mouth and see how much you can inhale, and then pause, and now inhaling your nose. There's more to go. So you're inhaling through your mouth fills up to a certain place, then inhaling from your nose, you go deeper and more full.
Yeah, for sure.
So both work so well together. So you were talking. Oh, go ahead, Richard.
No, I was just going to also note that, talking about the power of it, how we know the emotions directly affect the breathing, either disturbing or deepening it, right? So breathing consciously, using Qigong breathing can shift your mood. It can really cause a difference in bodily reactions in a very, very short amount of time. So it's super powerful.
So the idea you brought up a while ago about the circular breath. Would you like to add to that, or?
Yeah, the circular breath is just breathing in and out with no pause, but again, doing it with attention and slowing down the breath. And there's a lot of benefits to the circular breath, but my focus was more on the abdominal breathing because of our Qigong practice and this being Spring Forest. Heart wisdom talk, dropping of the diaphragm, again, is really, really an important difference in the quality of the breath. It makes this internal space for the lungs to expand. So we also know that we're taught the reverse abdominal breathing. That's really a specialized breath with a special purpose. When we're really trying to focus on gathering the energy in the lower Jiangtian, building that reservoir so then we can send it to any area we have blockages and then see them transforming and then shooting back to the ends of the universe. We don't want to be doing that. My understanding is this, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Glenn, we don't want to be doing that all the time because that's stressful, not natural breathing. That's a specific technique for that specific objective. But our normal breathing, like an infant breathes, that belly breathing, is what's soothing and calming and allows us to breathe deeply, more easily, more relaxed.
If I may shift just a titch, if you look at exercise, the more intense that you exercise on the physical level, strengthening, working really hard on that, then it can help with the sympathetic nervous system. But if you work more on the slow breathing, pausing, slowing down the breath, that works on both the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is, in description, is kind of like the pressing on the gas pedal in the car. And then the parasympathetic nervous system is as if you're putting the brakes on. You're going into a rest mode. So there's a thought about exercising too intensely really is not beneficial to the body because it only affects one area of the body. But practicing the deeper breathing, more often and more regularly, it affects both forms of nervous systems.
Yeah, definitely. And you need the balance. You absolutely need the balance. So I think the conscious breathing practice as part of your Qigong practice, but also as a separate practice, not just when you're doing the meditations or whether you're doing the active exercises, but just doing some conscious breathing, 5, 10, 15 minutes a day can give you amazing benefits.
Can I put you on the spot just a little bit?
I would expect nothing less.
Well, what I'm asking for almost is, what does your day look like if you're kind of, having a consciousness or conscious breathing? What is it instead of like, I'm going to do my meditation and breathe then? But if you apply what you're talking about, what does your day look like if you're, more consciously aware of your breathing, of your breath?
I think the the short answer is present moment awareness. You're living in the present. You're not worrying about the future. You're not thinking about the past with any kind of regrets or doubts, or you're just being in the moment. And that being in the moment really helps you to stay in a good state, in a happy, joyful, present moment state. So I think that's the difference. And when you are sending that message, you are self-soothing, you're calming, and so you're increasing your ability to focus, you're increasing your ability to concentrate, improving your relationship with in your workplace or with your family members. It makes for a beautiful day, doesn't it?
Yeah. So let me move that question on to the folks that are maybe watching now or in this recording. Like, so for me as a psychotherapist, my job is like to sit in the same room with different people all day long. So there's not a day when I'm not sitting in front of someone crying. There's not a day when I'm not sitting in front of someone who's angry, who's, all sorts of emotional world things. So I do work very deliberately of my breath. I'm a lot more aware of slowing my breath down more and more. Almost the deeper the crying is, the deeper I go into slowing my breath down rather than moving it up in my body and getting kind of alarmed or getting charging. So it is almost as if I'm specifically focused as I, get face to face with real life situations, that there's a way that I'm not getting pulled in or pulled off center, that the slowing down of the breath keeps you centered on your own slow breath. As a marker, the more that my breath rises or increases in speed, the more I'm realizing I'm not doing harm to my body, but I'm needing to bring myself into a slow in order to allow the world to go on as it is going on, with the tears and with the anger, with the confusion. It's just that I'm no longer, entangled in it. So the conscious breath, it helps you not get so entangled in other kinds of emotional states.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I mean, there are times when you need to have those tears, you need to let them out. There's times when you need to be angry. There's times when you need to be stressed and do your fight and flight because you're running away from that immediate danger. But what you want to be able to do is to come back more quickly to your center, just as you're talking about. And that breath technique, that awareness of the breath, consciously breathing, slowing it down, brings you back to your center. And gives you more control over what's going on in your life, in your day, and over your health and well-being.
I got a little bit rattled at the beginning when you said that you listened to like a workshop where there was 45 workshops on breathing. And I'm going, oh my goodness, we have 45 minutes to consolidate all of breathing. But the idea too is that yes, the inhaling, the exhaling in the lungs is kind of like the idea that's where all the breath is. But as we've talked about the circular breath, that really involves our whole body. No longer is it just focused on the inhale, exhale in the lungs. Master Lin has taught a breathing, so to speak, through your whole body. And then when you do that, you realize the breath isn't just the lungs. The breath is that consciousness. I'm breathing, through my whole body. I'm exhaling through my whole body. This is a little bit more advanced. So the circular breath is not involving just the lungs, but the whole body again. So that the breathing really is about the whole body, the whole system.
Yes. And it is about keeping it simple, and so the circular breath, forget about the 2, 3, 4, 5-part techniques, all these things, just the in and out, but smooth, long, slow, deep breathings, they make a world of difference. And yes, Master Lin tells us about breathing in with every pore of your skin. And at the beginning, it seems like something from from the movies. I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
Bull Durham. When the pitcher's mentor was saying, breathe in through your eyelids. I always thought about that at the beginning. But then, you know what? With practice, you get it. And even my own favorite master, Glenn Tobey, suggested to me one time that I breathe in through the soles of my feet, and I breathe the air up from the soles of my feet to the top of my head and back down. And at the beginning, I was like, what is he talking about? But you know what? I can do it now. And it's really, really powerful. And one of the times I really use it and like to use it is when Master Lin is leading us in a meditation, and he says, be aware of your body, spirit, all together as one, right? And so when I breathe in from the bottom of my feet, up my legs, through my waist, through my chest, to the top of my crown, and breathe all the way back down, that is really uniting my mind, body, and spirit as one. And very quickly, I'm able to feel what I think Master Lin is asking us to feel in that moment. So thank you, Master Tobey, for that suggestion.
You know, the other piece of that is when I do the Qigong work on someone else, I ask them to sit in the chair and then do that circular breath, actually for the purpose of keeping them focused. So if their mind moves away to think about, you know, something to do, oh no, bring it back to the circular breath. Just bring it back to that circular breath. Or just bring it back. So it's a technique of, here's how I can stay focused just on the breath. So even if you're practicing your breath, even using that circular breath as a technique of training your mind, just stay focused on breathing. When your mind goes off on something else, bring it back, whether it's the traditional breath, whether it's the circular breath. It is also a technique that helps you in your focus and your concentration, that the breath is important and must stay focused on the inhale and the exhale and the deepening. So, Richard, do you have
talk about
some other? Go ahead, please.
No, I got too many things, Lynn. I was going to just say really quickly, talking about the circular breath. Another thing I love to do with the circular breath is a variation on the small universe, where you are just doing a circular breath of the small universe without stopping at each of the 12 points, but doing that visually in your mind, but just breathing in, coming up the back to the spine, to the top of the crown, breathing out, going back down to the base of the torso, and then breathing. Doing that circular breath with a small universe, I think, is also very powerful, and you can do it very quickly.
Yeah, very powerfully. That's just beautiful. I'm just going, oh boy.
All right, great. I didn't know if that was a timeout, let me talk, or no
more. I don't know either, but I was having fun. So. Do you have any closing thoughts? Or would you like to move us into
actually, I don't know how much time we had. I was thinking, instead of doing a closing meditation, to do another breathing exercise. But if we don't have much time, you let me know.
Oh, take the exercise.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's get in our comfortable meditative position. Sitting down, closing your eyes. With your eyes closed, lower your gaze. Make yourself comfortable, relax your shoulders. Bring your awareness to your breath. Bring your awareness to your natural breath. And bring your awareness to calm, balance, ease, peace. Breathing just slowly in and slowly out. How does the breath feel to you? Is it smooth or choppy? Is it deep or shallow? Is it easy or difficult? Be aware of where you're breathing. Where does it enter? Where does it leave? How deeply are you breathing? Are you breathing in through your nostrils or in through your mouth, or a combination? Are you using your chest, your belly, your back? What's your breathing rate? How fast are you breathing? Let's do a basic mindfulness meditation, breathing exercise. Breathing in, be aware that you are breathing out. Breathing in, sorry. Breathing out, be aware that you are breathing out. Just simply focusing on the breath. Breathing in, aware of breathing in. Breathing out, being aware of breathing out. Now follow the breath all the way in and all the way out. Be fully present in the here and now. The oneness of the body and mind are together with the breath. Breathing in, you're calming your body. Breathing out, you're releasing any tension in your body. Simple circular breathing. Breathing in and breathing out. Okay, now you can rub your hands together. Open your eyes. Massage your face a few times in that heart-shaped motion. Brush back through your scalp. Massage your ears. Take that relaxing deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Even with a ha or an ah or a sigh on the exhalation. Nice. That feels great. How do you feel, Glenn?
Great. Thank you so much, Richard, for your thoughts and your heart. So we returned from when we started that what can take your breath away? Nothing. You have so many ways to keep your breath. And now maybe also you're able to see your breath. You feel your breath. You don't have to be in cold weather. So there are all sorts of ways of seeing and feeling, being aware of your breath and its importance and its power. So thank you so much, Richard, and best to you. And if those of you who are tuning in and wish to continue, just go continue. Otherwise, we'll close off today and love you so much. Take care.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you, Glenn.